The genealogy of Jesus tells us how God sees each individual as part of his intricate redemptive plan. But the story is less about the individuals and more about how his mercy and grace goes beyond cultural boundaries, moral failures, and social status. Each one is a testament of how God brings dignity to the despised, hope to the hopeless, and purpose to those that society has overlooked. God chose what is low and despised in the world, even things that are not, to bring about the things that are, so that no human being might boast in the presence of God. You see, this story is about God. The amazing thing about the Bible is that God's story is not sanitized for our comfort. It's a story of redemption, how God can transform our mess into meaningful. The fourth woman mentioned in the genealogy isn't actually even mentioned by name, simply as the wife of Uriah. And any honest reader would immediately assume there must be a story here. That one sentence is loaded with history. David was the father of Solomon by the wife of Uriah. Uh-oh. What's the story here, David? King David is one of the most prominent figures in the Old Testament, and the only thing mentioned of him in Matthew's genealogy is this irrevocable connection to this unnamed woman. A look back at 2 Samuel reveals that her name was Bathsheba. Theirs is a story of how sin and its consequences can ripple throughout generations, and how God can even redeem this. Bathsheba is first introduced in 2 Samuel 11. King David, at the height of his power, will make a fateful decision that will alter both of their lives forever. One evening, while David is walking on the roof of his palace, he sees Bathsheba bathing and is inflamed with desire at her beauty. Even though she's married, he sends messengers out to go get her for him. As King David had all the power in the situation, Bathsheba had little to no ability to refuse. The narrative does not give us Bathsheba's voice or perspective, but chooses rather to focus on David's actions and his alone, making it clear that his actions are a horrible abuse of power. It states simply and explicitly, David sent messengers to get her, she came to him, and he slept with her. The situation gets even more complicated when Bathsheba discovers that she's pregnant. Her husband Uriah is at war in David's army, leaving no good explanation for the pregnancy. Bathsheba tells David, and what follows are a series of desperate attempts to cover up his actions. At each turn, though, Uriah shows incredible character, loyalty both towards David and his fellow soldiers and his wife, making David's final action even more abhorrent. David orders Uriah's superiors to place him at the front line of the battle, and then to withdraw the supporting troops, ensuring his death. After a period of mourning for her husband, Bathsheba is brought to the palace to be another one of David's wives. Imagine Bathsheba's pain. In the blink of an eye, she's gone from being the wife of a noble warrior to a widow, grieving not only the loss of her husband, but bearing the shame, the violation, and the manipulation of a leader who everyone viewed as a hero. Her life had been turned upside down by forces beyond her control, yet her story does not end in despair. God's displeasure with David's actions will not pass without consequence, so God sends his prophet Nathan to confront David. He tells David a story of a rich man who took a poor man's only lamb to prepare a meal for his guest despite having whole flocks of his own. Enraged at the injustice in the story, David demands the execution of this evil man. And you can almost feel the weight of Nathan's next words. David, you are the man. His sin has been laid bare. There's no more covering it up. He's forced to face the gravity of all of his sin. Though he repented deeply, the child born to Bathsheba became ill and died as a consequence of David's sin. The loss was just one more painful way that Bathsheba suffered for the sins of David. Later, Bathsheba will have another son named Solomon, and Solomon will go on to become one of Israel's greatest kings and the builder of the temple in Jerusalem. But Bathsheba's role doesn't end with just being Solomon's mother. She will emerge later as a woman with incredible wisdom, influence, and strength. When David is old and frail, he faces a series of power struggles within his own family. Bathsheba, along with Nathan, play a crucial role in ensuring that Solomon would take the throne, and not one of David's other sons, who sought the throne for personal gain. With humility and determination, she reminds David of the promises made that Solomon would sit on the throne. Bathsheba's story seems so unfair. so unjust, so broken. How could God allow suffering of an innocent person like this? How could anything good come out of it? But the story of Jesus is like this too, isn't it? This Christmas, remember that Jesus left the splendor, the richness, and the comfort of heaven to be born in a stable, laid in a feed trough, wrapped in rags, and to bear our sin and shame on his own free will. Why? Because he loves us and plans to redeem our failure. It wasn't the consequence of his own sin that brought about Jesus' suffering. It was our sin. And it was through his suffering that the generations that follow would be blessed. God made Jesus, who had no sin, to be sin for us, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. This is a Merry Christmas. We'd love to have you join us as we give glory to God during this Christmas season. Christmas Eve at the Humboldt Bible Church starts at 7 o'clock. For more information, go to www.humboldtbiblechurch.ca.